In the grand narrative of America's founding, names like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison dominate the stage. However, the philosophical underpinnings of the United States, liberty of conscience, separation of church and state, and just relations with Native Americans can be traced to an earlier figure, Roger Williams. A Puritan dissident, founder of Rhode Island, and passionate advocate for religious freedom and native rights. Williams was cast out of Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1636 by Governor William Bradford. In exile, he built a society based on tolerance and fairness that prefigured the principles enshrined in the U.S. Constitution more than a century later. Given his revolutionary ideas and lasting legacy, Roger Williams should be counted as one of the founding fathers of the United States. Roger Williams arrived in the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1631, seeking refuge from religious persecution in England. However, his radical beliefs quickly brought him into conflict with colonial authorities. He argued for the separation of church and state, claiming that civil authorities had no right to enforce religious conformity. Williams also denounced the legitimacy of the Massachusetts Charter, which he said had been granted without fair compensation to Native Americans for their land. These views were incendiary in a society rooted in theocratic governance. Governor William Bradford, though more moderate than other Puritan leaders, upheld the colony's strict religious orthodoxy. In 1635, under pressure from the General Court of Massachusetts, Bradford and other leaders banished Williams. Fearing his popular influence and uncompromising rhetoric, they saw him as a destabilizing force. He fled into the winter wilderness rather than be forcibly deported to England, seeking asylum among the Narragansett people. In 1636, Williams purchased lands from the Narragansett chiefs Canonicus and Miantonomy and established Providence Plantation. Unlike the Massachusetts Bay Colony, Providence was founded on the principle of religious liberty. Williams famously declared that forced worship stinks in God's nostrils, a sharp rebuke to Puritan authoritarianism. He opened the colony to people of all faiths, including Jews, Quakers, and Catholics, who were persecuted elsewhere in the English colonies. Williams's model of governance anticipated Enlightenment thinking and was profoundly influential. In 1644, he secured a charter from Parliament, recognizing Rhode Island's right to self-rule and religious freedom. This made Rhode Island a beacon of tolerance in an age of religious warfare. His writings, such as The Bloody Tenet of Persecution in 1644, argued for a, quote, wall of separation between church and state, a metaphor later adopted by Thomas Jefferson. Williams's early relationship with Native Americans was unique among colonial leaders. He learned their languages, lived among them, and largely treated them as equals. He believed that land should only be taken through fair purchase, not conquest. His efforts led to decades of peace between the Rhode Island settlers and local tribes, in stark contrast to the violence that plagued other colonies. During King Philip's War, Williams's efforts to mediate between native tribes and English settlers were tragically unsuccessful. Although he initially worked to prevent the conflict, the escalation of hostilities proved inevitable. Despite his advanced age, Williams served as captain of the Providence militia, defending the town against attacks. After the war, he continued to advocate for fair treatment of Native Americans, lamenting the widespread dispossession and violence inflicted upon them. However, his record is not without flaws, some of them very serious. Some historians argue that while he advocated for indigenous rights, his ultimate goal remained the advancement of colonial interests, and he occasionally used his influence to sway tribal allies in favor of English colonial expansion, especially during the Pequot War. Though not directly violent, his support for the English against the Pequot undermined his otherwise conciliatory stance. After the Pequot War, a committee chaired by Williams advocated for the enslavement of native captives. Thus, while Williams's approach was progressive for his time, it still reflected the broader colonial dynamic of control and exploitation. While founded on lofty ideals, Rhode Island also grew into a thriving economic hub. Its commitment to religious tolerance attracted a diverse population, which in turn fostered a vibrant culture and robust trade. Newport and Providence became important centers for shipping, including the trade of rum, sugar, and, sadly, slaves, as part of the infamous Triangle Trade. Although Williams himself did not support such slavery, the economic development of Rhode Island was also shaped by the broader Atlantic economy. Nevertheless, the colony's prosperity was made possible by the civic framework Williams had established, one that protected individual rights and promoted peace. This stability enabled commerce to flourish and attracted settlers from across Europe. Roger Williams did not sign the Declaration of Independence or attend the Constitutional Convention, having passed away many years before. But his ideas helped shape the soul of America. His commitment to liberty of conscience, religious pluralism, and just treatment of Native peoples stands as a moral and philosophical foundation for the American experiment. Long before the Enlightenment reached the shores of the New World, Williams was living its principles. By founding a colony on the belief that the state should not govern the soul, he laid the groundwork for one of the most essential aspects of American democracy, the First Amendment. In his bold dissent from orthodoxy, his embrace of diversity, and his belief in the dignity of all people, Roger Williams deserves recognition as a true founding father of the United States. Thank you so much for listening to this recording. Please consider liking, sharing, and most especially subscribing to our channel so that you can be reminded of new chapters as they are released, and to help us grow the channel. We really appreciate your time and attention.